Today, we open a secret archive from the fiery and chilling early days of the Cold War. This is the dark history of Adolf Eichmann, the man dubbed the architect of the Holocaust. But make no mistake. This story does not begin with screams on the battlefield, it begins with the terrifying silence of numbers and administrative spreadsheets. Look at the screen. What do you see? A pair of round-rimmed spectacles, shattered on cold black stone. The shards of glass reflect a gaunt face, eyes sunken deep behind a hazy mist of smoke. That is Adolf Eichmann in the glass booth at the Jerusalem trial in 1961. A quintessential high-contrast image of the noir genre, harsh light shines directly on the truth, yet darkness still envelopes the soul of the perpetrator. He was not a monster with claws or the frenzied gaze of the serial killers typically seen in movies. No. He was a middle-aged man with a clipboard and an ink pen. He wore cheap suits, neatly tied neckties, and always spoke of duty. But it was those clean hands, those meticulous strokes of a pen, that arranged the schedules for the trains that sent 6 million souls into the void. This is the story of a cat-and-mouse chase spanning 15 years, crossing oceans, from the crumbling ruins of post-World War II Berlin to the dusty, impoverished streets on the outskirts of Buenos Aires, Argentina. A breathtaking intelligence operation ended the flight of one of the most highly sought-after war criminals in human history. Why could an ordinary mechanic named Ricardo Klement shake the entire Mossad intelligence agency? How could evil hide so perfectly under the cloak of such banality? Fasten your seat belts. We are about to enter the darkest corners of history, where the light of justice finally reaches the lurking ghosts. Berlin, January 20, 1942. While the rest of the world was reeling from gunfire and smoke on fronts from the Pacific to Russia, at number 56 to 58 AM Grossen Wannsee Street, a luxury villa reflecting on the surface of a frozen lake, a fateful meeting was taking place. This was not a place for generals commanding armies, but a place for those who commanded pens. 15 high-ranking Nazi officials gathered for breakfast and to discuss an administrative procedure. In a room thick with the scent of expensive cigars and cognac, a 36-year-old man sat quietly in a corner, focused on taking notes. He did not have the rugged look of an executioner. He had the face of a diligent accountant. That was Adolf Eichmann. The essence of the banality of evil. We often personify evil as a demon with glowing red eyes. But at the Wannsee conference, evil manifested in the form of tidiness. The philosopher Hannah Arendt later used the immortal phrase "the banality of evil" to describe Eichmann. He did not fanatically hate every individual Jewish person, he simply viewed them as commodities that needed to be moved. To Eichmann, killing was not a moral crime, but an optimization problem. He did not hold a gun, he did not personally push anyone into a gas chamber. His work was much cleaner, he arranged the trains. He sat amidst towering stacks of files, clipboard in hand, calculating how to cram hundreds of thousands of people into cattle cars without clogging the transportation network that was prioritizing the military on the Eastern Front. This is the most terrifying aspect of Nazi logistics. Evil had been industrialized. It was operated by civil servants who viewed the extermination of a race the same way they viewed the distribution of coal or food. Eichmann was a perfect link in that machine because he lacked empathy, he had only blind loyalty to the process. Look deep into the secret archive regarding Eichmann's operational capabilities. He was entrusted by Reinhard Heydrich to coordinate the entire deportation system for one reason: Eichmann was a fanatic for precision. During the time of the final solution, Europe's railway network was a vital lifeline. The military needed trains to carry ammunition, the wounded, and supplies. Yet, somehow miraculously, Eichmann still found gaps in the schedule to insert ghost trains bound for Poland. He calculated meticulously, payload, how many people could each cattle car hold before they collapsed? Time, how long would it take to clear a ghetto in Warsaw? Cost, how could the victims themselves pay for the trains taking them to their deaths through the confiscation of their property? Eichmann viewed every train that departed on time as a professional achievement. When a superior complained about a delay, Eichmann would worry not for the miserable human lives, but because the prestige of Office 4B4, which he managed, was affected. When death becomes a statistical figure. At his office on Kurfürstenstrasse, Eichmann created a factory of death on paper. He coordinated between the Ministry of Transport, the police, and the SS with a terrifying smoothness. He did not need to see blood spilled to know he was working effectively. To him, the end-of-day report with soaring numbers was the evidence of success. That is why, during his later trial, Eichmann always maintained a strangely indifferent attitude. He truly believed he was not at fault because he was merely an operator of the system. He was just doing his job well. But history does not forget. The numbers in Eichmann's spreadsheets were not commodities. They were lives, families, children. Every stroke of this administrator's pen signed the death warrant of millions of souls. And as the darkness of World War II gradually drew to a close, this architect knew he had to disappear. He could not take the stacks of files, but he took the secrets of those trains into the darkness of a 15-year-long flight. The Wannsee conference ended in laughter and disgusting consensus. Adolf Eichmann gathered his papers, straightened the creases of his vest. He stepped out of the villa, looked up at the gray Berlin sky, heart filled with pride for having found a logistical solution for an empire. He did not know that the very trains he so proudly coordinated would later be the ironclad evidence leading him to the gallows in Jerusalem. May 1945. The Third Reich collapsed. Berlin was no longer a center of sweeping avenues, it became a massive graveyard of rubble and frantic dreams. Amidst those ashes, the administrator of death Adolf Eichmann understood that the era of plans on a desk had ended. Now, he had to face a naked reality. The Allied gallows were tightening. The disappearance of the architect. He did not choose suicide like Hitler or Goebbels. With the survival instinct of a calculator, Eichmann made the first move in his escape gamble. He shed his finely tailored SS uniform, tore off the insignia associated with the power over life and death, and put on the worn-out clothes of an anonymous private. Under the alias Otto Eichmann, the man who once coordinated millions to their deaths now lurked in American military prisoner of war camps. Imagine the irony of history. American guards walked back and forth in front of one of the world's most wanted war criminals without ever knowing. He sat there, eating meager rations, eyes hidden behind cheap glasses, quietly observing and waiting for his chance. But the POW camp was not a safe place forever. As interrogations grew more intense, Eichmann knew he had to move. He escaped the camp, trekked through the dense forests of Bavaria, hid in remote farms, and performed heavy manual labor in exchange for a place to sleep at night. The Odessa organization and the Ratline. To escape Europe, Eichmann needed more than luck. He needed a system. And that was when the Ratline emerged from the shadows. This was not a solitary path, but a secret network woven by the Odessa organization of former SS members, along with the controversial assistance of certain extremist clerics at the Vatican. People like Bishop Alois Hudel believed that helping the sons of Germany escape punishment from the communists was a spiritual duty. Eichmann's journey began on snow-covered trails across the Alps. He moved like a ghost across the Austrian border into Italy. At every stop, an invisible hand was always there to provide food, shelter, and most importantly, a new identity. In the darkness of ancient monasteries in Rome, the file on Adolf Eichmann was officially erased. Here, with the help of underground contacts, he received an International Red Cross humanitarian passport. His name was no longer Adolf Eichmann, nor Otto Eichmann. He was now Ricardo Klement, a refugee from Bolzano, Italy. The ship Giovanni C. and the South American horizon. In the summer of 1950, at the port of Genoa, a gaunt man with a fresh beard and a beret pulled down over his forehead stepped onto the deck of the Giovanni C. He clutched a small suitcase, which contained no gold or Reich treasures, only forged documents and a cold will to survive. As the ship left the port, looking back at the European continent sinking into a deep purple sunset, Ricardo Klement perhaps offered a silent smile. He had survived the greatest hunt in history. Ahead of him lay the vast Atlantic, and further still, Argentina, the promised land where Nazi ghosts were gathering to build a new life in the shadows. The Ratline map appeared in his mind like a black vein connecting two worlds. From luxury offices in Berlin to the small alleys of Buenos Aires, the journey of the administrator of death was not over. He was simply moving into a new chapter, where he would hide perfectly under the cloak of an ordinary mechanic, waiting for the day the darkness of the past would rise again. But Eichmann was wrong. He could change his name, change his face, even change his life. But the scent of the genocide plans on the Wannsee desks would still haunt him like the breath of death, guiding the seekers of justice to his very doorstep 10 years later. Buenos Aires, the 1950s. Far from the bright avenues of the Argentine capital's center, crossing dusty red dirt roads, we arrive at Olivos and then Bancalari, a poor neighborhood where houses sprang up spontaneously, lacking both electricity and running water. Here, in an unplastered raw brick house, a thin man with sharp eyes behind thick glasses is quietly watering rose bushes. Neighbors know him as Ricardo Klement. A mild-mannered, soft-spoken German immigrant, working hard at a rabbit farm and later as a mechanic for the Mercedes-Benz factory. He has a devoted wife and healthy sons. The life of the Klement family is so quiet it is almost tedious, blending perfectly into the crowd of European refugees seeking fortune in the New World. But beneath the shell of that ordinary mechanic, Adolf Eichmann's heart still beats with the rhythm of a man who has never felt remorse. The complacency of the fugitive. 10 years of living in the shadows had led Eichmann to develop a dangerous illusion: absolute safety. Argentina under President Juan Perón was not just a refuge, but a paradise for the defeated. Eichmann did not completely sever ties with the past. He still participated in secret meetings of the German exile community, where beer bottles and old marching songs still resonated in discreet basements. He was even confident enough to grant an interview to Willem Sasson, a former SS war correspondent. In those secret tape recordings, Eichmann did not hide his pride. He spoke of genocide as an unfinished mission, regretting that he had not dealt with it more thoroughly. The arrogance of a man who once held the power of life and death began to crack the mask of Ricardo Klement. He believed the world had forgotten, or at least had grown tired of chasing ghosts. But fate always has the most ironic arrangements. The man who coordinated millions of trains leading to death was finally trapped by the romance of youth. Love, betrayal, and the net of heaven. Eichmann's eldest son, Klaus, was a fiery young man carrying the heavy extremist ideology of his father. Klaus did not use the surname Klement but kept the name Eichmann within his close circles of friends of fatal oversight. In the mid-1950s, Klaus began dating a beautiful young girl named Sylvia Hermann. Klaus had no idea that Sylvia was the daughter of Lothar Hermann, a blind Jewish man who had luckily survived the Dachau concentration camp and emigrated to Argentina. During their dates, to impress his girlfriend, Klaus often boasted about his father's illustrious past, about the power of the Eichmann family in the Third Reich. Sylvia, with the instinct of a daughter whose father had tasted hell, began to suspect. She recounted these stories to Lothar. Imagine this scene: a blind father sitting in the dark, listening to his daughter talk about a young man named Eichmann, who was living right there in Buenos Aires. An invisible link began to reconnect. Lothar Hermann, though he could not see the light, saw the truth that the rest of the world had missed. He secretly sent a letter to Fritz Bauer, a Jewish German prosecutor, the only person he trusted. The letter, written in trembling lines but carrying the weight of 1,000 tons, accurately described the location of the house on Garibaldi Street. The net of heaven began to surround Ricardo Klement. In Tel Aviv, in the windowless offices of the Mossad, codenames began to be established. Old photographs from World War II were brought out of the archives. Agents began to study every wrinkle on the face, every smallest habit of the mechanic in Argentina. Eichmann continued to water his rose bushes, unaware that every step he took on Garibaldi Street was now being watched through telescopes from mysterious black cars. The quiet life undercover was about to end. The darkness of the past had caught up with the fugitive, and this time, no Ratline could save him. May 1960. Tel Aviv. Inside the windowless office of Yasser Harel, the head of Mossad, a file labeled Top Secret was opened. After 15 years in hiding, the name Adolf Eichmann was no longer an invisible ghost on theoretical maps. He had been located at number 14 Garibaldi Street, Buenos Aires. But Argentina was not an easy land to extradite a war criminal from. If they wanted to bring the architect of death to justice, the Mossad could not use an arrest warrant. They needed a kidnapping. And so, Operation Garibaldi was officially activated. Uninvited guests from Tel Aviv. The special task force was selected from Israel's Iron Hands. Many of them, like Peter Malkin or Rafi Eitan, carried scars that would never heal from the Holocaust. Their families had vanished into the smoke of the concentration camps that Eichmann himself coordinated. But their mission was not blood revenge, their mission was to bring the big fish back alive to face the judgment of humanity. Under the cover of being employees of the national airline El Al, a group of agents landed in Buenos Aires one by one via different routes. They did not travel together, they did not stay at the same hotel. They vanished into the city like dust in the wind. They rented safe houses, bought old cars, and began to establish a secret communication network. Surveillance, lenses in the dark. 4 weeks afterward, Garibaldi Street became the focus of sleepless eyes. Mossad agents took turns sitting in cars parked along the dusty dirt road, pretending to be couples talking or idle car mechanics. They snapped hundreds of photos. High-contrast black and white photos, blurry yet powerful. In one classic photo, Ricardo Klement is walking home, holding a bouquet of red roses, a gift for his wife for their wedding anniversary. Look at the irony, a man who signed the order to kill millions of children was meticulously caring for flower petals. Malkin and his teammates observed every smallest habit of the target. What time did he get off bus number 203? Which side of the road did he walk on? Did he hold his flashlight in his left or right hand? Every small detail was analyzed to eliminate all error. In the world of noir, a second's delay or a wrong footstep was enough to turn the hunt into a diplomatic disaster. 8 p.m., the moment of destiny. May 11, 1960. The Buenos Aires sky darkened rapidly under the gray clouds of a coming rain. 2 black cars parked quietly on Garibaldi Street, a short distance from the bus stop. In the first car, Peter Malkin tightened his leather gloves. He had been ordered, "Do not touch Eichmann with bare hands," out of sheer loathing. In the second car, other agents kept their hands on the wheel, engines idling smoothly, ready to speed away. 20:05 bus number 203 stopped. A thin, familiar figure stepped down. It was Eichmann. He walked leisurely toward his house, the light from the small flashlight in his hand sweeping across puddles. As Eichmann passed the parked car, Malkin opened the door. "Un momentito, senor, one moment, sir." Eichmann stopped, slightly bewildered. Before he could regain his composure, Malkin lunged. A professional tackle sent the perpetrator tumbling into a ditch. Eichmann let out a terrifying scream, a sound that tore through the quiet space of the poor neighborhood. But that scream was extinguished before it could go far by Malkin's gloved hand and the support of 3 other agents. They dragged him into the back seat of the black limousine. The door slammed shut. The car tires screeched, speeding away into the darkness, leaving Garibaldi Street as silent as if nothing had ever happened. 10 days in psychological hell. Inside the safe house, the big fish was handcuffed to an iron bed. When the agents took off his glasses and began the interrogation, the trembling Ricardo Klement admitted in German, "Ich bin Adolf Eichmann, I am Adolf Eichmann." The next 10 days were a suffocating psychological confrontation. Mossad agents faced a shocking reality: the man behind the death of their relatives was not a brave warrior, but a coward, constantly demanding jam, asking for coffee, and worrying about his own safety. Malkin often sat opposite Eichmann in the dark. He looked into the eyes of the man who had architected the death of his younger brother. At times, Malkin wanted to strangle him on the spot. But the discipline of an agent and the desire for a public trial held him back. They had to keep him alive. They had to bring him to Jerusalem so the world could see the true face of evil. Operation Garibaldi was not just a kidnapping, it was a pilgrimage back through history to reclaim justice from the hands of ghosts. And as the El Al plane prepared to take off, carrying a drugged Eichmann away from Argentine soil, the Mossad agents knew they had just written one of the most glorious chapters in the annals of world intelligence. May 1961. Jerusalem. The journey from Garibaldi Street to the Holy Land was no ordinary trip. To bypass Argentine security, Mossad agents performed one final bold move. They dressed Eichmann in an El Al pilot uniform, heavily drugged him so he was lethargic, and pretended he was a crew member with a traumatic brain injury from a traffic accident. When the plane took off from South American airspace, a sigh of relief echoed in the cockpit. The fish had come home. The glass cage and the awakening of the world. When Adolf Eichmann appeared at the Beit Hayam Auditorium in Jerusalem, the whole world was shocked. Instead of a demon in a dark SS uniform with glittering medals, people saw only a thin, balding man wearing thick glasses, sitting small inside a bulletproof glass cage. That glass cage was both to protect him from the fury of Holocaust survivors and a symbol of the isolation of evil. Throughout the trial, more than 100 witnesses stood up, recounting the earthly hells they had endured. The choked sobs, the arms-bearing tattooed numbers from concentration camps raised high in front of the man who had arranged the death of their families. The defense of the order follower. Faced with ironclad evidence, Eichmann still maintained a terrifyingly indifferent attitude. He did not deny the events, but he denied moral responsibility. His only answer, repeated over and over like a broken machine, was, "I was only following orders." He argued that he was just a cog in the machine, a diligent civil servant performing logistical tasks according to the laws of the state at that time. He tried to turn himself into a victim of the system, an innocent man because he had no choice. But prosecutor Gideon Hausner crushed that illusion with an immortal declaration, "I do not stand here alone. With me are 6 million souls who cannot speak." The final verdict. After months of trial, in December 1961, the court delivered the final judgment. Adolf Eichmann was found guilty of 15 counts of crimes against humanity, war crimes, and crimes against the Jewish people. Exactly at midnight on May 31, 1962, Eichmann was taken to the gallows at Ramla prison. This was the only death sentence ever carried out by a civil court in Israel's history. Before he died, he still felt no remorse, still mumbling about his loyalty to Germany. His body was immediately cremated. To prevent any place from becoming a pilgrimage site for neo-Nazis, the ashes of the architect of the Holocaust were taken far out into the Mediterranean Sea. Agents scattered his ashes into international waters, a place belonging to no country, belonging to no land of humanity. The ghost of Eichmann vanished into the cold water, but the lesson of the banality of evil forever haunts human conscience. The file on Adolf Eichmann is officially closed in the vault of the Noir Archive. We have just gone through a 15-year journey, from paper-filled offices in Berlin to dark streets in Buenos Aires, ending with a rope in Jerusalem. This story reminds us that, justice may be late, but it has the eyes of an eagle and the patience of the darkness. It will find you, no matter what identity you hide under or in what corner of the world you lurk. Evil does not need to roar to be terrifying. It can wear glasses, tie a necktie, and talk about duty. Our task is to remain forever vigilant, to never let such architects have the chance to draw blueprints for death again. Thank you for accompanying us in this case file. If you want to explore more dark corners of history and the secret campaigns of the Cold War, please press subscribe and turn on notifications. The truth always lies where the darkness begins. Goodbye, and see you in the next Secret Archive Files.